A manosphere. It's been, all over the news lately, and it's definitely stirring up some controversy. It really reflects, I think, some of the shifts in how we see masculinity these days. But what's so interesting to me is how much it's changed, especially how it's declined recently. If you think back to the early 2000s, it was all about like pickup artist forums and men's rights groups. Then fast forward to the 2010s, and the whole thing just exploded, right? On platforms like Reddit, YouTube, and algorithms. Those things played a huge role, just feeding content to this massive audience. But here's the thing, it wasn't all like helpful advice reaching guys. There was a lot of anger and frustration mixed in there. And as time went on, the whole movement kind of fractured. Instead of a united front, you had men going their own way, or MGTOW, advocating for total separation from women. Then you had incels who were struggling with, involuntary celibacy and often harboring resentment. And then, of course, the red pill communities promoting this worldview that often painted men as like victims of feminist agendas. So this splintering, it diluted their message, right? And it made it way easier for critics to target its more extreme elements. Media scrutiny got more intense, social media platforms started cracking down, and researchers began highlighting the potential harm of some of these ideologies. From the outside, there was growing public awareness and criticism of the manosphere's toxic elements, which led to like counter movements and organized opposition. It was like the perfect storm, internal division and external pressure. And I think it's safe to say the manosphere as we knew it, it's fading. But the story doesn't just, end there. The manosphere's legacy, and some might say its evolution, is still very much alive. Take the rise of passport bros, for example. These are men who travel abroad, mostly to developing countries, seeking relationships with women they see as more traditional and, well, submissive. Now, on the surface, this might seem like a personal choice, right? Just a harmless pursuit of love across borders. But there are some dark sides to this trend that we really can't ignore. Right. There have been reports of increased violence against American men seeking these types of relationships in places like Colombia. Medellin especially has seen a disturbing number of deaths. And it's not just violence either. There are stories of men, being drugged and robbed and exploited by women they met on dating apps. These men, they're putting themselves in vulnerable positions in unfamiliar environments, often without fully understanding the cultural nuances or the risks involved. Even the U.S. State Department has issued travel advisories warning about using dating apps to meet women in certain foreign countries, which, that says a lot of the potential dangers. What's striking to me is that this passport bro thing, it's in a way a direct result of the manosphere's teachings. The dissatisfaction some men feel towards, Western women, the desire for partners who fit a specific and often outdated ideal. These are themes that were heavily promoted within the manosphere. It's a clear example of how online ideologies can spill over into real-world actions with potentially serious consequences. But there's another layer to this that I find incredibly interesting, and that's the behavior of some of the manosphere's most prominent figures, the self-proclaimed experts and gurus. These are the guys who preach self-reliance and financial success and traditional values. Yet if you look closely at how they operate, you find this startling level of hypocrisy. They build their brands on criticizing, modern society and modern women. But then they turn around and use those very same modern tools, social media, dating apps, online courses, make a profit. It's like they're saying, do as I say, not as I do, right? They sell courses and coaching programs to vulnerable men, often for crazy prices, promising them the secrets to success with women and wealth and happiness. But is this genuine help? Or are they perpetuating a cycle of dependency that just benefits them financially? And let's not forget their personal lives. They advocate for traditional values, commitment, monogamy. But behind the scenes, their own relationships often tell a different story. This disconnect between their words and their actions, their public persona, and their private lives. It raises serious questions about their authenticity and their motives. Some people might say that this whole passport bro trend is just a matter of personal preference, right? It's just a harmless way to find a different type of relationship. But to me, it feels more complicated than that. It often comes down to this idea that women in developing countries are stuck in time, that they're somehow more traditional and subservient than Western women. But that's, first of all, it's just not accurate. And it's also kind of dehumanizing, isn't it? It reduces women to these stereotypes and ignores their their individual aspirations and desires and, the complexities of their actual lives. But even if we set aside the ethical stuff and just assume everyone has good intentions, there's still the issue of power dynamics, right? We're talking about men from wealthier countries, often with more social and economic privilege, pursuing relationships with women who might have fewer options and, fewer safety nets. And this imbalance, it can create situations where it's hard to know what real consent even means. And the potential for exploitation, whether it's intentional or not, it's huge. And let's be real for a second. Cultural differences and language barriers and different expectations, those things can lead to misunderstandings and challenges later on. What might seem exciting and exotic at first can easily become a source of, friction and conflict down the road. But amidst all of this, there's actually a glimmer of hope, I think. While the traditional manosphere might be, fading away, the conversation started about men's issues hasn't disappeared entirely. In fact, I think it's kind of evolving in some interesting ways. Think about it. The manosphere, for all its problems, it did bring to light some very real struggles that a lot of men face today. Loneliness, isolation, the pressure to succeed, and just confusion about what it means to be a man in a world that's changing so rapidly. I mean, these are valid concerns. And the good news is there are new communities and conversations popping up that are addressing these issues in a healthier, more constructive way.
We're seeing men's groups, both online and offline, that prioritize vulnerability and challenge toxic masculinity and support men's mental health. These groups aren't about, retreating from the world or blaming women. They're about encouraging self-awareness and emotional intelligence and genuine connection, both with other men and with women. It's a welcome shift, I think, and it shows that we can talk about masculinity in a way that's positive and supportive and ultimately empowering, right? So what advice can we offer to men who might be feeling lost or drawn to the allure of the manosphere's, simplistic answers?
Well, first of all, it's okay to feel lost or confused. I mean, we're all trying to figure things out in a world where the old rules don't really apply anymore. Instead of seeking refuge in echo chambers online, look inward, explore your own values and desires, and define what being a good man means to you personally. Second, connect with other men who are, on a similar journey. Find communities that foster vulnerability and challenge harmful stereotypes, and support each other's growth. And don't be afraid to, seek support from women too. Listen to their experiences and perspectives and learn from them. And lastly, don't underestimate the power of therapy. Having a safe space to explore your emotions and develop healthy coping mechanisms, that can be really transformative. It's a sign of strength, not weakness, to seek professional help when you need it. The journey to becoming, a whole man, it's about self-discovery and growth and learning to be comfortable in your own skin. It's about finding your own path, not conforming to outdated ideals or blaming others for your struggles. It's funny, isn't it? This movement, the Manosphere, it was so focused on rejecting everything modern, clinging to these old-fashioned ideas, but it might actually be leading us toward a more modern understanding of what it means to be a man. The things they were so against, things like open communication and vulnerability and challenging those traditional gender roles. Well, those are the very things that a lot of men are starting to embrace now, as they look for a healthier way forward. So as we wrap up our look at the Manosphere, I really want to leave you with a sense of optimism. Yeah, the movement itself might be on its way out, but the conversation is started. That's more important than ever, I think. It's a conversation that's moving past the anger and the blame, and it's heading toward, a better understanding of what men are going through and a real desire for change for the better. And that change, starts with each of us, right? By challenging those harmful stereotypes and supporting the men in our lives and, just being open and honest with each other. We can create a world where men feel like they can truly be themselves. So thank you for joining me on this journey through the Manosphere. I hope this episode gave you something to think about. And if you found it insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into, all sorts of interesting topics. And hey, share your thoughts on the Manosphere too. Let's keep this conversation going.